I felt that by providing these objective numbers and measurements, it also can provide a feedback loop that we might be able to then look at. Are we becoming healthier? Or are we becoming less healthy? And what do we do about it? I want to be clear that there are things that can be done, but they're difficult. Okay. So it's just like health. You are where you are, and the others are rising and getting stronger. The next generation is, and okay, that's a reality. But there are just the basics. Are you earning more than you are spending? And do you have a good balance sheet, which has more assets than liabilities? That's number one. If we're going to get healthier, we have to do that, which means we have to be more productive and more competitive in the world, or we have to cut our spending to live more within our means so that we don't have financial excesses. The second thing is, are you good with each other? Do you work in a harmonious, productive way? Competitive is good, but competitive, productive ways to improve productivity and have harmony. If you can do those things domestically and internationally, then you have a competition. It's a healthy competition that you're competitive in. And so I think it comes back to how are we going to behave with what kind of self-discipline and harmony? Because there's another cycle, which is this war mentality. It's so interesting because you see this psychological about spending, borrowing, but also about war. The new generation had never been through a serious war. So they're more readily willing to get into a war. But if you look at history, almost anybody, even the most eager to get in the war and fight, the wars have been so terrible that they never want to get into a war again. And so that enters into part of that psychology in terms of that arc. So I think we're kind of in that spot. Can we change our mentality, almost experience the things that are like my parents experienced? They went through the Depression and war. And can you have that self-discipline and work well together and avoid the war is the real question. They go on for a really long time. Very few empires have resurfaced as the new empires. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, all of those, as you go through that, there's a long, long time. And all empires have declined. And then there's new rising empires through history. China's very interesting because I studied the dynasties going back to the Tang Dynasty, which is around the year 600. And you could see the arcs of those. A successful dynasty might be 200 years old, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes shorter. But China over the last, so that was since 600, you could see that they a number of times had a rise. The empire was the most powerful in the world. And then they decline and then it rises and it's the most powerful in the world. But the gaps between those are very long. So that's right. If you look at the last dynasty, which is the Qin dynasty, and you go to 1840 or so, very much on top of the world, but it was weak militarily in relationship to the powers, the British and so on. And then they had what they call their 100 years of humiliation. So about from 1840 to 1949 was when the People's Republic of China was formed. There was that 100 years of humiliation, and then you begin a recovery. So you have to go from a little past 1800 until now to be kind of up there as one of the world's great powers. First of all, to know how to diversify well, because this is the most important thing. You can reduce one's risk without reducing one's expected returns by knowing how to diversify well. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Also, to know that at these times, cash is not a good investment. Look at your returns in inflation adjusted terms, because that's buying power. The hidden tax and the hidden creation of wealth comes through the printing of money. What I mean by that, you're losing money. People think that cash is safe. Inflation last year was 7%. Inflation had probably be next year, maybe 5% more, maybe. And if you're holding your money in cash, you're thinking you're safe. Well, you've just lost a lot of money, a lot of buying power. So look at that in real terms and be diversified really outside of cash. And those would be the main thing. And that diversification means country diversification, currency asset class diversification. I think that's the most important thing. I would rather not get into all the particulars because there's so many things. To oversimplify, there are two main influences, inflation and growth, and they can go up or they can go down. So to own a mix of assets that is balanced in those environments so that there's not an environmental bias is very important. And then to do that in different countries. When I think about different regions, there are many. There's just so many that you can get into, just so many, and we'll digress into that, and I think we'd rather not. I wrote the book, and that's comprehensive. The main thing is there are many dimensions, how you psychologically approach these things. There's always a path to be good. There's always a path to be safe, you individually. And there are many ways to do that, and there are many in the book. But to have enough money, enough resources, and to be prepared that no matter what happens, wherever it is, I think is very important. That what you don't know and how you deal with it is more important than anything you know. So on that, I want to emphasize how you can deal with that. You can deal with that by being radically open-minded and humble to take in the best thinking of other people and consider the situation and then eliminate your worst case scenarios. Second is, I think in addition to the arcs that I'm referring to, the big cycle, everybody is in a life arc. To know where you are in the life arc. In other words, I think that there are 3 phases, broadly speaking, in your life, which is the first phase, you're dependent on others and you're learning and you're in school. Second phase, you're working and others are dependent on you and you're trying to be successful. Then the third phase, you are not working, and the ideal thing is to have people successful without you, people you love. And to know where you are in that life arc and where you're going, I think is very important.